Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Appreciate you guys watching. Last video, I guess I should say what we're working on again. We are working on the 1978 Super Beetle convertible from our friends at Volkswagen. We've done a bunch of stuff to this already that's in the previous videos, but just a quick recap how we got to where we are. We've replaced all of the leaking vacuum lines, fuel lines, gotten the purge valve working. We pretty much got things. We fixed the idle air control valve, rewired it, fixed the pulley so we have a belt and tension now. This was broken and leaking. We replaced that with an eBay unit. Pretty much got us to the point now where it's time to tune this. The last video I did was sort of how L-Jet works, the fuel injection system on this. And L-Jet is used in lots of different manufacturers. It's not just Volkswagen. Porsche used it a lot. There's a lot of manufacturers that kind of adopted this system in different configurations. And the basic pieces are all the same in those. But we're working on a Beetle. So one of the things that happens with these systems is as you get vacuum leaks, as hoses break down, instead of fixing them, people will just ham-fist adjustments. There's an adjustment here that I talked about up underneath here that's bypassed around the flapper to allow unmetered air in to lean out the mixture. And if you're not familiar with unmetered versus metered, watch my last video. I go through all of that and explain how this system works, because once you know how it works, a lot easier to work on it, right? Way easier to troubleshoot. So people will tend to drive this screw all the way in to richen the mixture to account for the lean condition that the vacuum leaks make. So these are always messed up. There's an idle screw here that's a bypass around the throttle plate that adjusts idle. People will screw with that when the idle is high because of a lean condition, or because this valve is failed open and is always there dumping air in. So there's a lot of things that can kind of get messed up on these systems over the years of people tuning them. I know we've got no vacuum leaks now. It does run well enough to do some other things to it. So we're going to tune it, basically. We're going to get it good. We're not going to get it great. Great would require us to have it on the road and be able to flog it at speed, because there are some finer adjustments up in here depending on if we're lean or rich at speed. We might need to adjust. But for now, we're going to get, good throttle response at off idle. Just get the mixtures and everything back to where baseline would be. Before you do that, you want to make sure that there's some fundamentals in place. You don't want to start tuning a carburetor or the fuel system until you know you've got timing right and you've got your valve set right. So I've already done a valve adjustment on this. I did film it. It was super uneventful. I think I've mentioned a couple times that this engine's very quiet, which had me thinking the valves might be really tight because they didn't have any of that typical chatter. This thing's just quiet. The heads look relatively new. I don't know if this engine got refreshed at some point or if it's just original really low miles, but the valves were good. I might throw that video up. I don't know. You guys tell me if you want to see it. I feel like a valve job on a Volkswagen is not exactly earth-shattering. But I adjusted all the valves. One cylinder was a little bit tight and one cylinder was a little bit loose. Two of them were just fine. So we know we've got valve timing done. Always do that as a first step in tuning. Next up, timing. Couple of different things, and I'll show you guys timing first before we get into the mixture, because again, timing changes dramatically affect idle speed and a whole bunch of other stuff. So we want to lock the timing in. There's a couple ways you can do that, and it's slightly variable depending on which distributor you have. Hopefully nobody watching this has one of those 009 distributors on their driver. That's the one that does not have any sort of vacuum advance on it. Yes, they work. Yes, they're cheap. No, you shouldn't run them on your car. I think I've talked about that before, but they're not designed for off idle and part throttle. They are mechanical advance only. You can tune them for idle, you can tune them for wide open. Your in the middle will require some shenanigans with the distributor and sometimes even with the fuel to try to eliminate the flat spot. So hopefully you've got a vacuum advance distributor of some kind. This dude here is a dual vacuum, dual advance, the DVDA. The SVDA, the single vacuum dual advance, I like a little bit better. Basically, the single vacuum is an advance pot with the single vacuum advance is an advance pot. I should be pointing back here because this is the retard. It has the advance pot in there that will actually advance the idle when you're, depending on part throttle conditions, and then it has the mechanical weights to take over when the vacuum signal's not doing its thing. These guys, the dual advance ones, this vacuum pod has 2 diaphragms in it. The back side is advanced, the front side is retard. The reason I mention all that, because these are a more rare distributor. The reason I mention it is because you time them statically different. So when you have one of these dual vacuum advance distributors, you do not unplug the vacuum lines to set your idle timing. You're supposed to leave everything hooked up. You let the retard function do its thing, and I should pull it back to like 7 degrees after top dead center. That's your retarded timing. For me, with Volkswagens, with the Type 4, I like to just basically get the timing right at speed. You're not going to, if your idle's a little lumpy, if your idle's got, issues with, if it's not right, it's not perfect, but when you wide open throttle it, you're at like 30 degrees of advance max, you're doing good. Because if you get the idle perfect and you don't look at what your max advance is, a lot of times a great idle will sound awesome and be 42 degrees of advance timing at speed. If you do that, you will turn your engine into a blowtorch cutting valves. You don't want to do that. So you'll watch me go through this. I'm going to set this thing probably between 28 and 30. 30, I think 28 is the spec. 30 to me is okay on these. It's a little trickier to set this perfect to me, at least in my experience with the points. I'm leaving the points in here. I typically, like I did on the bus, will put in a Protronics unit. Listen, it's just an igniter. It goes right in the stock distributor, still have the vacuum pot, does all the things, but I don't have to worry about point gap and dwell and all that other fun stuff, which I should mention real quick. I've set the points on this. I do have a dwell meter to set dwell. You want dwell to be about 50 degrees. I'm not going to go through it. It's not worth it. Like I usually, once you get the points set right in here, as long as you're timing it with whatever you have and you don't change that setting, you'll be fine. You can adjust. There's a lot of science behind dwell. It's, how long the points are open for, when they ride on the cam lobe. I've never really had good luck tuning them that way. And I say haven't had good luck. It doesn't do anything. Like I've never really been like, oh man, the dwell fixed it. So set the points. Set the ignition timing. After that, we're going to get up into the airbox and start to adjust this and that so that we can get the idle set where we want. But timing first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire this up. I'm going to warm it up. And then we're going to set this dude at 28 and adjust the distributor and see where we're at. And I'll talk you guys through that. But yeah, that's where we're at now. Let me go fire it up and we'll get it warm. Alrighty. I just fired it up. She's a little lumpy. I got a suspicion she may be a little rich, but I'm going to let it even out, idle down, do its thing, get it to the idle air valve is closed, and then we'll come back and we'll check some timing. Alrighty, she's starting to warm up a little bit. We're not there yet. What I want to do, it's running so, I can smell how rich it is. I want to do a quick adjustment, but I wanted to show you guys what I'm doing while it's warming up. The timing is way advanced. I can tell just by looking at the distributor where it's sitting. So it's way advanced, and it's still got a pretty lumpy idle. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to talk to the camera. There it is. I'm going to adjust this to 4.5 turns out. That's the base setting. So what you're going to do is turn the screw all the way in, and then you're going to back it out 4.5 turns. That's a baseline adjustment for that bypass. I don't know where this one's at. Let's see, that was a quarter, 1. We'll count them as we go in. Half, 2, half, 3, half, 4, half, 5. Wow. So we were 5 turns in. Not crazy, but we're gonna bring it out 4.5. 1.5, a half, I should say. 1 half, 2 half, 3 half, 4, half. Okay, so that's right now. I just wanted to make sure that that was where at that baseline setting. Again, we'll be adjusting that as part of the process once we get the timing set, but I'm going to start it back up now and let it idle out, and we'll see. I'll leave it running while I restart it. We'll see how it restarts. Okay, so, you know, it kind of runs like junk, which you'd expect. I mean, it's going to run bad until we get all the adjustments working together. Like I said, I don't think the timing is right now. In fact, I'm sure it's way advanced, and I got a feeling with how it's running, I'm going to find when I go to retard it, it's going to want to stall out. So we're going to have to play with that throttle butterfly bypass and make sure it's getting enough air. But we got to let it get up to speed. Temp sensor 2, or up to heat. So temp sensor 2 has got the correct map in place, not the warm-up map. And I'll explain that when we get in there, but let's let it warm up a little bit. Alrighty, I'm not sure how good you're going to be able to hear me. So I'm just going to try to point, and maybe I'll do a voiceover. If you can't, I got to check the audio when I'm done. But it's warmed up. You can see it smoothed out a lot. It's still got a little bit of a hop, and it still smells a little rich to me. But we're going to try to get the timing set idle. There is a dot for 7 degrees advance on this thing. I'm going to try to tune it for that first. So that way we're basically, the advanced setting is 7 degrees after top dead center. We're going to set it for that, and then we're going to do the rev up test and see if we can get max timing to fall between 28 and 30. So let's see what we get. Stop blinking, 1 second. We're back. So yeah, it is definitely advanced right now. So we're gonna bring it back. So right about there is where it wants it. But as you can see, the idle's a little low. So I'm going to use this and the idle screw there to just pick the idle up for now. Trying to get it somewhere around 800 should be fine. All right, that's right around 800. So let's give it a couple revs and make sure. Doing a little backfiring into the exhaust. Doesn't smell super rich. Let's see what our total advance is. We're going to crack this up to like 28 and see where it's at. Yeah, we'll leave it at 28 at speed. Now we're at 40. We got to bring that back some. So we're going to do a little bit more retarded timing. See where that has us. Now we're getting a little low again. So we're going to open that up a little more. Bring our RPMs back up. bring this back up to 800. All right. So in theory, we're timed. We're timed again. We're timed for max advance because you don't want to cook the engine. It's running pretty smooth. There's a little bit of a miss, of a hop in there. Honestly, I've seen that a lot with points. See it less with electronic ignition, but I know the timing is good. So I'm gonna lock that down and then we're gonna restart it and make sure that it still runs. So let me shut it off. And I'm doing it this way just because I can't tell you how many times, I don't know, maybe it's just my luck. You go through all the work, you set the timing, you get everything right, you get the idle right, you turn it off, and then you go to restart it, and no dice. It won't restart. It kills the cold start ability. Now, we're not going to be testing cold start here, but I do want to lock that timing in because at least I know at that setting, I'm not going to fry anything. You know, I'm not going to create a very advanced situation where it's going to be pinging and everything. And I've never done, I mean, the plugs on these, the plugs don't look great for sure, especially this one over here. The ceramic is broken on it. So it could use wires. I have to check the plugs. I pulled one out and it looked okay. But to eliminate a little bit of that sort of, I mean, I don't want to call it it's like a little bit of a miss at idle. It goes away at speed, as you guys could hear, but it's still even a little bit there. And on decel, we were getting some popping and spluttering. So that's the kind of symptom that you see when this gulp valve isn't working. So it's possible the gulp valve doesn't work, and that's why it was blocked off. I'm going to have to see like that when you come off of it and you get that ba 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 in the exhaust. That's L-jet when you don't have a working gulp valve. Bus does it because I don't have one. So that might just be something we have to live with until I can either replace or verify that thing. That's not the purpose of this video. We'll get to that. It's not hurting the engine right now to do that. So what I want to do next is I want to try to make sure that our mixture here is about where I want it to be. Now, unfortunately, without an exhaust gas analyzer, this isn't more art form than it is science. We're at 4.5 right now. It smells good to me, and I know you guys can't smell it. I don't smell it being particularly rich, but that hoppy thing may be solved by some adjustments here. So that's what I'm going to do is I'm going to play with this a little bit and see if I can get that splutter out of it by richening or leaning out the idle mixture. Again, it's only that this thing only really controls the idle mixture. It does almost nothing once you open the throttle because now it's going past it. You know, you don't need it then. It's the wipers inside the box here control mid speed, high speed. They do control idle as well. I don't know if somebody's been in there. Well, I shouldn't say that. I know someone's been in there because there's RTV on this box. I don't know if I need to get in there or not yet. We're going to see where we get. Getting timing locked in was the first order of business. So now we're going to play with this a little bit and see what we get. So let me get it running again. Actually, let's see what the hot start does. Put that together. All right, so our hot start is good. Our idle's where it should be. It's not really hopping all over the place. I'm going to let it warm back up for a second and then bring you guys back and we'll play with that screw a little bit. Alrighty, so it's running pretty good. Not super inclined to play with the screw too much, but you kind of want it just on the hair of lean when you're at idle. You know, you don't really need to worry, not just for economy, but it helps the plugs not soot up, all those things. So right now it's warm. I'm going to turn the screw in a little bit and see what the engine likes, and then I'm going to turn it out a little bit and see what the engine likes, and we'll sort of review where we landed and just find the best in between. So, right now, you hear that barking in the exhaust? We may be a little bit lean, so we're going to richen it up a little bit. Again, I put that screw in, that richens the mixture by one turn. I don't know if you can tell, it actually smoothed out a little bit. Let's see if the barking in the exhaust goes away. Nope, still there. But again, that might just be our purge valve. But it does seem to like that because the idle speed went up. Typically when you do something the engine likes, you're going to get your idle speed to raise a little bit. I'm going to bring it back down now. Yeah, see, we're up pushing 900. Alright guys, back down to about 800. It's running pretty good. I'm going to go another half in and see if it gets rid of that popping. It's a little bit less, but not enough to make it worth it. And if you notice, the idle speed did not go up that time. That means it's probably richer than it needs, so I'm going to pull that half back out. I think I like it. I think I like it where it is. Just shut it off for a second. All right. Well, there you have it. That's some basic L-Jet tuning. I mean, you guys saw what it was doing when we first started it. It was hopping and lumping and moving. The bypass screw is definitely wrong. This was fine. I mean, the flapper, the throttle plate bypass hadn't been like turned too far in or out. But we set the timing. We know we got our timing right, and our max advance is now set, so we know we're not going to cook the engine. I put it right up between 29 and 30. It's somewhere in there. It floats a little bit with points. Like, it's very hard. Like, if I put an electronic ignition in, it's way more steady as you're adjusting it. So close is kind of what we're shooting for. Going to leave the points in it for now because it runs good. If we have drivability issues or I need to tune a little further, we'll mess with that for it more. But for now, I think we're good. I don't plan to do anything else back here on the motor at this point. Now that we've got everything good, we know it hot starts. I do need to check cold start, which obviously I can't do now. But we need to figure out the cold start situation, make sure it's good. If it is, then this is done. One thing I want to point out to you guys, and this is, I didn't make a whole video on it because I feel like I sort of talked a little bit about it, but in the effort to talk about tuning, I want to just spend a minute on Temp Sensor 2. Sorry, I'm putting all this crap away so I can sit down and explain this to you guys. So Temp Sensor 2, I mentioned in one of the other videos describing the system that there's really only two temperature inputs to the system. TS1 is in here and it reads air temperature. TS2 is over here in the head on the Beetle. I think it's in a similar spot on the bus, but it might be back on a cylinder. But that is a very important piece of the equation here. That provides a resistance value to the ECU that sets your fuel map. Now, if anybody's not interested in this, this would be a good time to stop the video. I'm going to get kind of technical on this thing for a second here. But it's because this thing died on me, and I could not get it to restart. And it was that. And I want to explain to people how important that sensor is, so in case this happens to you, you know. So, for those that stayed, that sensor there provides a resistance value based on head temperature. It's somewhere, and it's on the internet somewhere. I want to say it's somewhere between 30,000 ohms and like 200. Somewhere in there, in that range. If it's fully wide open, if the computer sees infinite resistance, you get a wildly lean condition, or you get a wildly rich condition, and it will not run. If I were to pull that off and try to start this thing, it's going to go very, very rich at that point. If I bridge it and I ground that wire that I have zero resistance, it goes extremely lean, and then there's no fuel going in. And so it's kind of important for that to work. Now, the values are variable based on temperature and also, unfortunately, manufacturer. Ratwell does a really good job explaining the different ohm values at different temperatures of the different aftermarket sensors. If you don't need net, the original Volkswagen ones are better than the cheapo aftermarket ones. I got this one, I believe it's a Bus Depot one. They're okay, what people say. I've heard a lot of people on the internet say they break after 2 months. I've heard a lot of people say they're great. The trick is not to over torque them. If you over torque them in the head, the heating and expanding, I think they go to 10 foot-pounds. The heating and expanding will cause them to crack internally. If you keep them too loose, you don't get good contact. So let me explain why I'm explaining this. When I bought this Beetle, the guy told me it just shut off and he couldn't get it to restart. I pressurized the fuel system manually and the cold start valve was spraying fuel. My assumption was that was the problem, because when I fixed that, it started up and ran. You guys who are watching the series, you saw it ran fine. You know what I mean? Outside of all the tuning we did. But that sensor had a bit of a janky wire on it, and you'll hear, if you watch the other videos, you'll see me point that out sometimes, like that makes me nervous. Well, after I did the last video on the vacuum setup on this thing, I shut it off, I went to restart it, I could not get it to restart. It was stone dead. It was literally blowing almost raw fuel out of the exhaust. This tip here was blowing raw gas out. I was like, whoa, what is going on with that? So I grabbed that wire and I bent it the other direction and it fired right up. So what I did is, you can take this wire, this is the connector, you can take it off, and I checked the ohm readings at different temperatures, and it was literally reading anywhere between 30,000 when it was sitting here normal, which is going to make it very, very, very rich, or I could bend it towards the firewall and it would read correct. I could bend it back, it would go to 0, so the wire was no good. So just for a test, I took a 5,000 ohm resistor and I just wired it in here. Like that's you can make that for yourself at home. If this thing strands you on the side of the road, you can make a resistor pack of, say, like 5,000 ohms. That's enough that it's going to be rich. It's not going to run amazing. It's going to run rich, but you're not going to hurt it by being too lean. And you just take the wire from the computer, you run it into one end of the resistor pack, the other end you ground, and now it's got a static 5,000 ohms. I did that. The thing fired up, ran great. Rich, but ran great. So I went to remove the sensor, and of course it's original like everything else on this car. Snapped it off in the head, had to drill it out larger, tap it, and then sink the new sensor in. I didn't show all that on video because drilling and tapping a head sucks. No one wants to see that. But I did think it was important to point out to you guys what that failure mode looked like. Running great, stone dead. And when I first got this thing, before I even pressurized the fuel system, I checked this sensor to make sure that that wasn't why it was stone dead, like the guy when he was experiencing. And I was getting the normal reading. I think I was getting, I don't even remember, like 6,000 ohms or something like that at it when it was cold and it was cold out. So I'm like, it's good, and it did in fact run, and I just thought it was this. But then, obviously, me in here moving stuff, doing all the vacuum lines, I disturbed the bad wire and exposed it. Way better to expose it now than after I'm driving down the road somewhere. But a couple things to note. Keep these with you, have a spare. They're like 40 bucks. Put one in the glove box, keep it with you, because that will break you down and strand you. Or make a resistor pack that never goes bad, that doesn't need to be in the head, and you can just jumper it right from a ground to that thing, and you'll be on the road again to get home, and you can limp home that way. A couple different options, wanted to point them out, but that's it for this video, guys. I just wanted to show you guys a quick tune-up on it. We got our ignition timing set, we got our air-fuel mixture set, I explained temp sensor too. We do have a little bit of a bark on deceleration. I have to figure out if the gulp valve is working or not. I'll experiment with that a little bit and see. If it turns out that it's broken, I'll bring you guys in and check that out. Otherwise, I think we're done with the engine. I think we're going to move on to try to make sure that it rolls and stops safely so we can get it on the road. Because a lot of the tuning that's still left to be done, we kind of have to have it on the road for. So we've got a lowered front end on brand new spindle, a brand new lowering kit. It's got brand new rotors and calipers. And brand new struts, which is awesome, but none of it's put in right. It's all loose. The brake light over here is almost rubbed through because it's just flapping in there. So we got to go around, get the wheels off, check the brakes, fix all the loose stuff, and at that point, we'll be able to yard drive this thing. So stay tuned for that. That's going to probably be up next. And I appreciate you guys watching and liking and subscribing, and I will see you soon. Thanks.